free development.
Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. It's already starting to get humid around here, but you can keep humidity out of your vents, protect your flooring and your subflooring from that excess moisture, and you can prevent mold and mildew by calling Southeast Termite and Pest Control and asking them about their crawl space encapsulation service. They do great work with this. You can visit them at southeasttermite.com to learn more. I've been using these guys for many years, Southeast Termite and Pest Control. All right, let's start with a quote here. I thought this was interesting. I think we've got the graphic. Do we have the graphic? It's the one called the Booster Bank, if we have it. There we go. All right, just a quote to start this segment. We're funneling everything previously under the table over the table, says one SEC staff member who spoke to Sports Illustrated under a condition of anonymity. The big change is the numbers are going up. Before NIL, you knew it was BS if a kid came to you and said he was getting more than $50,000 from another school. Now numbers that used to be BS aren't BS anymore. Everything now comes down to how willing are your boosters and how rich are your boosters. You're pretty much effed if you don't have the booster bank.
Why would they be anonymous with language like
With
that?
all that, yeah, language like that. Boosters paying kids under the table was once viewed as a big problem. Now boosters are paying kids over the table, and some are still saying that's a problem. If you're UT, are you better off in a world where there's some regulation? I mean, or are you better off in a world where it's the wild, wild west, just like it is right now? We talked about you're taking advantage of it. You got kids coming. Now the coaches are working to recruit these kids too. It's not all money. Money's a big chunk of it. You've got a lot of money. So why would you want regulation? The only reason I would think would be you're in a league with people who have just as much or more money. So if it's the Wild West, yeah, you can go grab players from smaller groups. But if it's the Wild West, you can also have bigger fish come in and take your star player. Alabama can come say, wow, you've got a really good linebacker on your 6-6 team. We'll take him next year for a couple million more. So if you're Tennessee, we'll start down there. Do you want regulation or no?
Boy, honestly, I kind of see it a little bit of both ways. I mean, you think
The mark of a good question.
yeah, absolutely. And so, yes, you could get more talent that maybe it puts you in a pool that you maybe weren't going to get. But kind of to Marlon's point before, do you have the culture to be able to hold it all together within, even if Josh Heupel and everybody's doing a good job right now? So I kind of see a little bit of both sides of it, but I still probably would lean on the Wild West, even though I kind of feel bad saying that.
Josh?
Does regulation mean we'll just go back to more under-the-table stuff on
Right.
top of what's regulated? I would say, if I'm a Tennessee fan, now part of it depends on, I know, are you in favor of this? Some people are just against it, period. But if we're talking from a competitive standpoint, I would probably say I don't want any regulation. If we're just going to get down and dirty and we're going to fight here openly, let's take our chances that way.
Well, I think you look at the places that are really aggressive about this, that are paying the most money, that have the most money. It's Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, Nebraska. All these places have one thing in common. They're super hungry. They've tasted success, and they're not living there right now. They want to get to that next level, and this is a tool for them.
They want to get back to where they belong.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think definitely Tennessee would be in a much better world with the Wild West. And that scenario you talk, you can write contracts that prevent that. And people can say, well, maybe that's not right. Maybe you don't want to do that. Okay, but you can lock guys in. It's very similar to a grant of rights, the way that conference moves are, where you say, we're get your exclusive rights. If you leave, any money is, you don't get the money. Well, you don't get the money, but you can't
keep them here.
Well, you can write.
You
can write some interesting little clauses.
I wouldn't want to be the coach in the school that's trying to explain why my collective is suing a player.
Well, I don't think you would do. I wouldn't get to that point. But ultimately, I think you can somewhat prevent that scenario. And a lot of the schools,
I'll bet you can't. and I would bet Pitt would say you can't.
But
I would bet Miami would tell you.
The facts of the matter are, the big schools like the Alabamas and the Georgias right now are not paying as much. You have to take a pay cut if you're going there because they have. You're going to be in the playoff. Yeah. You're going to be a first-round pick. We're not going to pay the same market, and that is real.
Marlon, thoughts?
That's the reason why I say I don't want the Wild Wild West, right? Get a little extra money in your pocket, but at the same time, your culture better be very, very strong because teams win the national football championships. You got to have a really, really, really solid team with a really solid culture. If you're somebody coming from the bottom and trying to get back to where you were, you're going to have a lot of different entities. And now you got an NFL locker room, so you better be able to manage that.
If the NCAA had just gotten ahead of this, and years ago the schools had just figured out, let's give every kid $25,000 a year, you still would have had people saying, you're getting all this money and they're only getting $25,000. But I don't think you'd have landed where you are right now for a long time. I think you'd have had at least a beachhead to fight back with. Now you're just wide open. There's nothing you can do.
That would have been better than spending all the money they did in court to fight it completely.
Yeah, before you
Great
lost the
point.
Alston decision, you could have put NIL in with stricter guidelines. Now, again, I think you're still on the losing end of the moral argument there. But if you want to maintain a little bit more order, you could have done that, and it would have been a lot simpler. But now,
You wouldn't
again,
have that 9-0 decision.
exactly,
against you in the Supreme Court.
exactly.
I've never worried about morals. Okay. When we come back, let's talk about why, and we're talking, should Tennessee want it, the Wild Wild West or not? I would think the SEC would be the perfect place for the Wild Wild West. And yet it's Greg Sankey who's going to Washington to say, give us some federal regulation on this. What does that tell us about the league? Come on back.